Welcome to Wholehearted by Lovestrong. This is Tyler and Chase. We're up in the mountains behind Ty's place. Just hiked up, and it's kind of not a super roasty day, but it's a little warm.
It's a little warm. We worked up a good sweat coming up. But
Yeah.
the breeze feels good.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's nice sitting in the shade too, just taking a little breather.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice. It actually feels really good to get out. I just kind of feel the tension leaving my shoulders from being at work the first few hours of the day. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, like the more we do this, the more I realize I want to do this as our office.
Yeah. Oh
instead
yeah.
of me sitting in my office every day. So we got to keep this thing going.
Eventually we'll break out of there.
That's the goal. So, so part of the reason you're down here today is because you kind of got some cool news.
Yeah, so Chelsea and I just decided that we're gonna move down to Cache Valley from where we're living in Idaho Falls. And yesterday I talked to my boss, and he gave us the thumbs up for me to be able to work remotely. And I do web design and web development for this company called FinFun Mermaid, which you can ask me about that another time, but it's a great company to work for. But I do work for a mermaid company. It's the world we live in these days.
Right,
I'm working remote.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, pretty interesting. But anyway, that's pretty cool news for us, because it means that we'll be able to work a little bit more involved in an involved way on Lovestrong, since we'll be closer in proximity instead of having to commute, make this transition every time, and you come up, right, go down and spend 5 hours of our
travel.
Yeah, that'll be 5 hours we can pour into producing something and making some progress. So I'm looking forward to it, and I love this area. It's a beautiful area. When we were driving into town earlier today, I was telling Chelsea, like, it's gonna be amazing just having mountains. There's mountains near
Drive time.
Yeah, drive time, and we try and get up to them, but it's a lot easier to do something like this, take a break in the afternoon and go for a little hike, than to say, hey, why don't we drive an hour and a half and go find a spot that we can get on a trail. But yeah, so we're really excited about it. It's gonna be a new chapter of our lives, a big transitory period, alongside having this new baby and everything. There's a few big things that we're trying to still figure out, but we're hunting for a place this weekend to try and move to. And so far, no dice, but
nothing yet.
Yeah, nothing yet.
Yeah,
but we just barely scratched the surface, so hopefully we'll get something here.
Yeah, well,
quick.
I'm way excited to have you here, not just for Lovestrong. I am for Lovestrong, 'cause I think it will be a lot more productive that way, but it's just nice to have you coming closer, because I like hanging out with you.
Yeah, it's nice. I that's one of the main reasons I'm excited about it too. So it'll be good coming down and getting out and doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, we were kind of on our way up today. We were just talking about some things that were on our minds, and I had a few things, but you had a few things, and I just kind of wanted to know if there's anything still on your mind with what we talked about today that you want to maybe cover or talk about.
So something that you alluded to earlier on the walk up that I think connected well with some of the other thoughts I was having is the importance of being a responsible man. And I don't mean responsible in the way of I have to work 40 hours a week and I have to do this, and in this mundane checklist of maybe how society and kind of a white collar view of what a man is, but what a true man is, and the responsibilities that we share as being men. So one of the things I was thinking about is the joys that I experience from helping my wife take care of our baby. That's such a simple thing that if I weren't in tune with and Chelsea would probably watch this and be like,
He
he's
doesn't
not
know.
in tune. He's a total clown. What is he talking about? Get over here and change his diaper. Why are you up on a
Why are
mountain?
you in a mountain?
Yeah. Like, I'm so in tune.
Yeah, exactly.
Sitting over here tooting my own horn, but the time, oh man. And last night I told her, I said, hey, wake me up for the second shift when the baby wakes up in the middle of the night. I got him. Don't you worry about this. And I slept right through it. She didn't wake me up. She just woke up and was like, this guy, and just took care of the baby and fed him anyway. So the things that we should be doing, that's one of them.
It's easy to talk about. It's harder for us to do too.
Yeah. But I'm trying. I can say I am honestly trying. Helping out with things like that and being aware of the needs of our spouse, our children, you know, the people that we have stewardship over, and other roles. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's really been pressing on me a lot. And the term, as you were talking, is a term that I'm always preaching to my daughters. When they go somewhere and need to be paying attention to being considerate to other people or having good manners or things like that. And the term I use is, hey girls, you got to use some situational awareness, you know? And so that term, situational awareness, has been on my brain a lot, mainly because of what I was complaining to you on the way up here. And I do think it applies to what we're trying to do here with the Love Strong Project, as it relates to masculinity and as it relates to like helping to develop these, you know, a strength and a core body of men who know what it means to really be a man. And so the thought that was on my mind, I was kind of telling you about, was this situation I've got where I've got a couple who, this man has had his own problems. He's had a sexual addiction. He's gone and had several affairs on his wife, and they've been coming to see me for therapy. And through the course of therapy, he's decided not to do his work. Like, he continues to still have his girlfriend, and he isn't really doing any changing. And so, of course, his wife is kind of grown into this place where she can't tolerate being disrespected the way she is anymore. Mistreated. So
Understandable.
So she goes and files for a divorce because she's finally worked to a spot where that feels peaceful and that feels right. Yeah. And as soon as she files for a divorce, this man, who, by the way, has gone and cheated on her, he now goes and closes out all the bank accounts, hides the money, and then leaves her at home. He goes and takes a weekend trip to Jackson with his girlfriend. Meanwhile, she's at home trying to take care of the family. And I just started thinking about situational awareness and going, what could possibly possess a man, or in this case, a boy in a man's body, to do what he's doing? And half of me says there has to be some type of wound there for him in order for him to go and do that, because I believe he thinks he's doing his best interest. And yet, if any man who's listening to this podcast or otherwise were to actually look themselves in the mirror and say, what makes a good man, it would not be what this guy's doing.
Right.
It's
the far other end of the spectrum.
Right. And I think it goes into selfishness. I think it goes into self-centeredness and maybe some deep-rooted pain somewhere. But at the end of the day, in order to climb out of whatever hole he's in, the way out is by embracing what it means to be masculine and looking at those situations and going, it doesn't matter how much pain I'm in. I have 4 children and a woman that I was married to that I'm on the hook to figure out how to help provide there, not just temporally, but emotionally, even spiritually, you know, and I wonder what's going wrong. Like, because this is just the example I'm showing today, but this is an example that is time after time after time, without fail, in my office. It rolls through the exact same thing. I can almost predict the pattern happening. As soon as the guy stops doing his recovery work, his wife decides to leave, and then he goes small. You know, and I think what they miss out on is the joy that you're describing with this idea of, I relate to you so much on that I love coming home, and I love being able to see a smile on my wife's face, and I love being able to come in and hug her and then look around and see my daughters and go, what's on for tonight? Yeah. And to try to be engaged as much as I can. Now I work a lot too, and it's hard because I always feel like I'm never quite there enough. But I think it's the intention that says, if I could, I would, and because I can sometimes, I will. Right. You know? So I don't know. I'm getting in lecture mode right now.
No, I'm feeling some of the passion, and I really appreciate that. On the ride down, Chelsea and I were having a discussion about not a survey, a study that she had dug into and was reading. The basis was that our generation is having less sex than previous generations. And she said it, in her mind, the logic wasn't there. The promiscuity has shot through the roof,
yeah.
right? But there's a lot of things like people who have helicopter parents, and they don't learn how to develop relationships because they're always looking like, oh well, what would my mom or dad want me to do in this situation?
Decisions.
Yeah, so they freeze in that, so they don't ever seek out relationships. Or people that end up being more isolated and turn to pornography, masturbation, and some of these other outlets, and because of that they find their fix there, and they don't find the joy of a healthy sexual relationship with somebody who loves them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, more than that, talking about how people are less inclined to get married, and the longer your relationship, well, and you know, this is where you probably know way better than I do, but there's times where couples will, you know, they have more of a likelihood to have that kind of relationship and connection if they have true love with one another than for somebody who is just looking for a hookup. And so some of the factors, it made sense as she was describing it, but I was thinking about a lot of the heaviness of that, and how you look around in the world and you see a lot of men that are more like shells than they are like men. And I think part of that comes from the decisions they're making and some of the examples they have to look to. But ultimately, it just goes back to, I keep thinking of all the things that they're missing out on because they aren't choosing this better way to live. And so, you know, part of what we're doing is trying to teach that better way to live, because some people just don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. And I think as you're describing that, I'm thinking, well, picture me 15 years ago, and I'm the shell.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposedly showing up like a good man, and back then I thought I was, but I was so wounded and I was so absorbed into myself because of those choices, and because of the way that I'd interpreted my value as a person, that I was actually really showing up small.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until things started to click and a light came on that said, hey Tyler, you can and need to be more. And some people think, oh, that's shaming, but in reality, I think we as men, we need that call to action. We need somebody to look at us and figuratively shake us and say, you're more than this. Like, you can do more, and you're capable of it, and here's all the reasons why you can be a force for good. And our world doesn't really treat men that way. You know, a good man in our world is a guy who just dutifully goes about his business, makes sure that he does, like you said, the 9 to 5, goes to church, says God is good, goes through the motions at church, but his heart never fully engages. And I think that's where you see the shell.
Right.
Is the heart never says, well, I'm actually doing all of this because I know who I am and I know who I want to be. And that's the work that I think both you and I have been in the process of trying to figure out, and we've found some things in the process, even though obviously we're both still totally work in progress, but there's a process to it that's really a beautiful thing.
And I think ultimately we can both say that we have very fulfilling lives.
Oh yeah, I'm way happier now, even though life still is hard sometimes.
Right.
And I still make mistakes, and I'm still working on a ton of things, but joy. I've never experienced more joy in my life until I found these principles of recovery and wholehearted living, that now even the same life 15 years ago now feels so much different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say recovery and wholehearted living. One of the things that we've been working on that we're excited to start unveiling is our wholehearted tree.
Yeah.
So the the principles, the core of Love Strong, and what we believe will lead to a wholehearted life. We maybe don't need to share everything right now because we don't have it exactly memorized, but there's one in particular that we're discussing right now is purpose and engraving your objective.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a big deal when it comes to yourself and what you are here to do.
Exactly, absolutely, and I think that is a core factor of being what I would consider a good man is that we need to be searching for and then pursuing, and the key word here is with intention, whatever those purposes are.
Yeah.
You know, so we have multiple purposes. I have a purpose as a husband and father foremost. I have a purpose that I believe is to be, you know, the best son of God that I can be, and by doing that, which is to be exactly who I believe God has told me to be, which is why we're doing this.
Right.
That adds richness to life. It doesn't make life easy by any means.
Yeah.
You know, it actually, I think, makes life a little harder in terms of the effort. But when you and I both found this, that when you live with intention, when you take something and you say, you know what, I am going to go and impose my will on this situation and make it better for somebody or something, and there's a real passion and purpose behind it, there's life there. You know, it's like you can physically feel life enter your body when you're engaged in a good cause.
You know, even the word engraving your objective, engraving, I remember looking this up for a church talk that I gave once. It is a very intentional act. It's basically digging, carving out of either wood or some hard surface, so typically stone, and you don't do that on accident. You don't accidentally engrave something.
No.
So we chose that word intentionally as well, and I think it speaks to that process and principle, that it is so critical that it be intentional. You decide, and even I like that God has helped us discover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, He's helped us discover that this is the path for us to be working towards, and given us this purpose. But and I say given, He's guided us to this purpose, and we have had to do the work in order to continue carving that out and engraving this. So
mm-hmm.
it's very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be up on this mountain right now. And this video wouldn't get posted.
Sometimes I'm sure the way we do this doesn't look intentional.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
But that's kind of intentional.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we didn't want it to necessarily look really formatted or intentional. We wanted it to be kind of rough and raw. And
otherwise, we would be in a studio and we'd be doing takes, and we'd have,
yeah,
you know, lighting and people to
probably
help.
wouldn't be producing this episode.
Yeah, no. This turd would get flushed right down the toilet.
Right, but I do believe, and I think you and I both agree, that that's part of what makes life worth living.
Absolutely.
Life rich.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know if that's where you were going when you introduced the topic today. I have a tendency to kind of hijack the thread when we start talking sometimes, but
No, not at all.
but I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that, other than that I'm also excited that we'll be kind of rolling this out. You guys will get to see it. We have kind of a concept in mind of some core principles with some core skills that will lead to what we consider, what we're finding with wholehearted living, and we should be doing that in the next few episodes, I would think.
I imagine so, especially now that we've gotten into the place that it's in.
Yeah.
The last couple times we've reviewed it, I've felt so good about how it's been pieced together. And you guys, this has been a process.
Oh,
I mean,
big time.
we are the most over analytical people that you know or don't know, and it's taken a long time because we want it to be
We want it
perfect.
to feel right.
Yeah.
That's our weakness, is we always want it to be perfect first, and
Yeah.
I don't even know if it is perfect yet, but we're gonna be rolling it out soon.
It feels so good.
Yeah, it does feel good.
Yeah. So hopefully you'll get to chew into that before too long, and we'll have some good content based on that those principles.
Yeah. So I just kind of want to mention to those who are watching, this is probably not something that you're a stranger to, but I challenge you to consider taking an inward look at your own life and some of those places where you feel like maybe God has called you to be working or to be doing, and take an inventory on how you're doing in those areas. And don't look at it with a source of shame, like defectiveness, like I'm not enough, but look at it in terms of what are a couple of intentional commitments I can start making today that can move me a step closer to being in line with the man that my heart knows I need to be. And I think that's all we can really ask of ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
great.
See you guys next week.
Right.